2023, Sierra Leone enacted the Gender Equality and Women's Empowerment Act. So what that means is the law requires 30% of public and private jobs to be reserved for women. It requires businesses give at least 14 weeks of maternity leave, equal access to bank credit and training opportunities for women. And there are harsh penalties for employers who don't stick to these gender ratios. And it's not just fines, it can even lead to prison time, which is really progressive. And so hopefully this makes it easier for women to start their own businesses. That was the goal. And I think that's very progressive for Sierra Leone. I think that the core insight of our paper, that women's entrepreneurial choices are rational responses to local labor market conditions, as opposed to some sort of cultural barriers, is highly relevant and clearly something that even the government of Sierra Leone recognized.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing that they did that. Yeah, I heard about India having something similar that they codified as well recently. I heard about it last year when I was listening to a consul general in Montana, actually. So that's really so that's a lot of potential to unleash.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
How do your findings sort of seg with these new competitive forces that we're seeing?
Yeah, so I want to be clear that the paper doesn't specifically talk about AI, but I do think there are parallels. So to recap, the paper talks a lot about firms of different sizes. So
Mhm.
in our paper, smaller firms after Facebook's entry either exited the market, went international, or specialized in niches. So outside the metaverse, if you think about those same takeaways for AI, what does that mean? It means that superstar firms have big data advantages that are creating nearly insurmountable barriers for smaller firms. And
Mm.
so even though smaller firms can go international and they can do that as a survival strategy, this trend that we find in the metaverse, if it exists in AI, it might actually reinforce
Mm.
superstar firms' dominance.
Right.
So let's tease that apart again. How would that happen? Well, if there's greater internationalization, this is going to fragment domestic competition.
Mm.
It's going to prevent the formation of any national or regional tech ecosystems in the US. And then it makes it harder for countries like the US to develop sovereign technological capabilities. So, on the one hand, internationalization might help small firms survive in these nascent digital markets, but on the other hand, it might harm long-term innovation because it's concentrating these technological capabilities in just a few firms. It makes it harder for nations to develop independent technological capabilities, and it's creating dependence potentially on foreign digital infrastructure or standards if these firms are innovating and going abroad. So it's important to note that even though we're finding these trends in the metaverse, I suspect and I hope research will also track what's happening beyond the metaverse into any industry that has a long, complex, resource intensive innovation cycle, which is artificial intelligence, clean tech, semiconductors, biotech, space. There are all sorts of industries where we might see these same trends. Again, this isn't in the paper, but if what we find in the paper about the metaverse holds true to those industries, I think it would be very, very interesting
Mm.
and affect innovation.
You mentioned something about that there would be competitive effects about in terms of regional ecosystems, and I'm thinking about like say Austin and the Texas Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's a lot of activity, in that area. Semiconductors factory fabs are being built. There's a lot of new innovation connected to those ecosystems and AI. So are you saying that big tech like the Amazons and the Metas and the Googles, that in fact, because of their market power, that could actually be a negative for like the regional development of ecosystems?
Yeah, so I'm thinking of it as so in the metaverse, again, I can only speak to our findings in the virtual worlds, but what we see is you could like a barbell shape industry structure. So you have these large superstar firms on one end and then specialized small firms on the other, born digital small firms, and then it's squeezing out the middle competitors. And in any healthy innovation ecosystem, you want a variety of firm characteristics. You need small firms and innovation, and you need large firms providing infrastructure and resources. And so I'm concerned and would like to see research and in innovation ecosystems to see if that's happening. And that would have a big effect on how we develop technology.
Mm-hmm.
So
So there could be a missing middle.
yeah, that's exactly right, the missing middle.
Oh, wow.
In terms of my personal opinion about AI, I'm really interested in the impact on innovation, which we just discussed, in competition, but also creativity. And I know there's a lot of really good research starting on how AI human interaction might impact human creativity. And I think that's really important. I think that creative industries, like we saw with the writers' strike, worrying about the impact of AI, I think this is going to be a huge area. And I think we need to start, as scholars, thinking more about the difference between scientific innovation and creativity and the effects of AI on it. I mean, there's a lot of differences and a lot of scholars that write on this. And we're starting to see a growth of work that now intersects AI and how that will impact both. So I think that's where my personal interest is I think that we will do a lot of research as scholars on innovation and competition and AI replacing jobs and sciences and supply chains. But I think that the very subtle and really economically important impact might be in creative industries.
Right, right. Yeah, it is going to be interesting. And I know that we sort of discussed that other paper of yours that kind of, touched on this as well. Some of the pandemic effects and, but it also, circled creativity. And that's some work that can be found. I think there's an interview on my channel as well. So now we're going to seg into the implications of all this. So now, just to wrap things up, we will discuss a little bit about the implications of your work and your sort of going forward ideas about how it relates to women and their opportunities. So coming back to opportunities for women, what do you see as opportunities and challenges in the digital and tech worlds?
Yeah, I love thinking about this. It's really an important intersection. I do feel obligated to say this is extrapolating well beyond the bounds of my research, but based on what I've read and some of my opinions, I would say for women in digital technology, there are a lot of opportunities. And thinking about the paper on born digital firms, if it's true that born digital firms can effectively compete at smaller scales, this would be a great entry point for female entrepreneurs who face barriers to traditional means of accessing capital. And if there are opportunities to compete with superstar firms by being a niche player or reaching global markets, this could also benefit female entrepreneurs who, again, traditionally have trouble compared to their male counterparts accessing markets or lack capital investment or lack the social capital. So I think those are, if those findings extend beyond the metaverse, that's really exciting for women. At the same time, there'll be challenges. So if big data advantages and network effects create powerful barriers to entry and favor established players, then we know incumbent firms are largely male dominated. And so this could just exacerbate gender imbalances. And if there is, I just made this up, this barbell industry structure, which, as you said, the missing middle, it suggests that if women are trying to scale their ventures, so if they have trouble accessing capital, specifically venture capital, to scale to sort of go from small to middle, then this would pose an additional challenge. And we know that startups with all women teams receive less than 2% of venture capital. So again, that's a challenge that might exacerbate.
And that's really interesting too about, I was thinking about in the financial world, there's a crowdsourced platform that I've contributed to since 2013, and they're really one of the best, and they're one of the early innovators in this space. And there's a lot of men that are contributors and analysts on it, mirroring the financial world. And I've been on it for like 11 years, and there's not a lot of women on it. But there's definitely, opportunity globally, like you said, with these platforms. And I think we're in early days, and yeah, it's going to be really an interesting ride for sure.
Yeah, again, and I don't look specifically at crypto, but I think statistically it's still largely male dominated, which in my opinion just simply means there's a lot of opportunity for women to get involved, and redirect investment in that space toward female oriented products.
Absolutely. No, in fact, some of the work I just did, I spent the day with a crypto miner, and then I was at a blockchain summit with a bunch of crypto miners recently too. And yeah, they're doing, fascinating work, really cutting edge work. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity ahead. Um, so thank you for your time. And I really, really appreciate your expertise and your willingness to spend the time thinking about these ideas and share your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much.